Yo, what's good, man? Nighttime spook. Four creepy, true, wrong number horror stories. I don't know what's going on. Like, seem like I've been having mad scam lightning numbers calling me late and be denying them every time. Like, I don't know why they calling me. I be having mad random numbers, like regular numbers calling me. I never even saw before. I don't know who had my last number. You must have. I don't know. It must be some bill collectors or something. Got to. I don't know. You gotta see what they talking about though. Like, what could go wrong? Wrong number horror stories.
This happened when I was a teenager, many years ago. I was with my best friend Tony, and we were at my house. My parents were gone someplace. I don't remember what.
Somebody probably done got tracked or something. I don't know.
Tony and I had been best friends for many years, and were like brothers. We liked to prank our friends a lot, and things like that. On this night that we were hanging out,
Okay.
Tony had the idea to prank phone call one of our friends. This was back before everybody had smartphones. Cell phones were around, but didn't have the capabilities that they do today. So we were going to call our friend Adam, and Tony had a whole joke that he was going to say to him. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was probably really stupid. So we dialed Adam's number on one of the home phones at my house. It rang a few times, and then who we thought was Adam picked up. Tony started going
Damn, was somebody else done picked up Adam's phone? What happened? We got robbed or something? What happened?
into his joke and wasn't stopping. After he had spoke for like a minute straight, the person on the other end spoke. It was a man, but not Adam. It sounded like an adult, and I think we were about 14. The guy was really mad. I don't recall exactly what he said, but he was asking us who was calling and what was wrong with us and things like that. When we realized that it wasn't Adam, we were both surprised and also embarrassed. Tony just hung up the phone when the guy was still talking. Then we had a good laugh about it, but we decided not to call Adam anymore. That was enough prank phone calls for us. Instead, we decided to play video games. Just moments after hanging up, though, the phone started ringing. We did not have caller ID, so I
Yo, what's up? Where Adam? So somebody must got Adam's phone, or he lost his phone or something. Got to. He said he called Adam. Somebody picked up, but it wasn't Adam's voice. Now he calling you back. What happened? He tracked you or something? What he about to?
answered it, not knowing who was calling us, although I think we both had a feeling that it might be the guy who we had just accidentally dialed. I picked up the phone and answered.
Oh, nah, he was trying to call Adam, but he called somebody else. Okay.
The same guy speaking, and he still sounded angry. I hung up on him, and then he called again right after. This time, though, we did not answer the phone. We started playing video games at that point, and over the next 30 minutes or so, the guy called back several more times. At least we assumed that it was him. But each time, we didn't answer and just let it ring. Then, finally, we didn't get any more calls. We continued to game until probably about an hour after the call. That's when there was a knock at the front door. I was confused when I heard it. I lived in a pretty typical neighborhood, but knocks on the door at night were very unusual. We were in my bedroom, and I left the room and walked out into the living room.
Man, you done pulled up on you. But how you know where you live at? See, I got it. What happened?
I got over to the front door and looked out of the window. Some guy was standing there who I didn't know. He looked right at me as I was looking at him. I moved away from the door, and he knocked again. I went back to my room and told Tony that some guy was there. Then the phone rang again.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were both wondering if there was any possibility that it could be the same guy, so we answered the phone call this time.
But how you got where you
The man spoke, and he told us to come outside. When I heard that, I instantly hung up the phone again. Now the man must have been calling from his cell phone. He knocked on the door again, and we both went out into the living room. We heard him yell for us to come outside. The guy appeared to be in his 50s maybe, and was wearing a baseball cap and a jacket. That's all I remember about him. We didn't answer the door, though. He stayed there for several more minutes before finally leaving. After that, Tony and I were just waiting for the phone to ring again, or for the guy to come back. But thankfully, he never did. After that, we never prank phone called anybody else. I think the guy that we called must have had caller ID. He could have looked up our address by finding it in the phone book or something.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's how you. Cause I'm like, bro, how you get y'all address? You feel me? And he really don't look y'all up though. Y'all pulled up to your door, what, about an hour later?
I really don't know, but that's my best guess. It still creeps me out that he actually showed up at my house.
Y'all were there playing around.
This game, you're not ready.
This took place back in the early 2000s. I'm a female and lived alone in my apartment at the time. I was home by myself one night and received a phone call.
For more.
I picked it up and answered, but at first didn't hear anything on the other end. I asked if anybody was there.
I would have never picked them, bro. I don't. Like I said, man, it'd be mad random numbers calling me. I don't know. Like, I'm not picking up. I don't know. So that would never happen to me. Random number calling, you just pick it up.
Didn't hear anything on the other end. I asked if anybody was there, and for a couple of seconds there was still nothing. Then, finally, a man spoke. I did not recognize the voice as anybody that I knew. He said that he must have the wrong number, and then he hung up. After that, I didn't think much of it.
Damn, that phone book shit, that probably is what's happening. I got a feeling this about to happen right here. And I think about it, what if people out here just doing that, calling numbers, and then looking their number up in the phone, their address up in the phone book or something. I already know where this is going. About talking about 30 minutes later, somebody came knocking at the doors, got their
Occasionally,
address on.
phone calls for the wrong number were made. It was certainly a lot more common than it is nowadays. So a few days went by, and then once more, I received a call late at night. I picked up the phone saying hello, and I heard nothing. I said hello several more times. Nobody spoke on the other end at all, and I was then hung up on by whoever had called me. The very next night after that, it happened again. By now, I was getting really suspicious. I didn't know what was going on, but it was strange that it kept happening. They would call, and I would answer, and then they wouldn't say anything.
They clipping your voice.
It always seemed to happen later at night. It was honestly creeping me out, and I was wondering what was going on. I didn't get any more calls for the rest of that.
Why you even... promise you this would have never happened to me. This dude, whoever this is, keep picking the phone back up every night. I'm pretty sure they're calling from the same number. You don't recognize it? After the first time, you should have never even picked up. If you go pick up the second time, after that, most definitely. Why you kept picking up for it?
Night, though. The next strange thing to happen was not a phone call. I left for work the next morning after the previous call. My drive to work usually took about 15 minutes. Now, I was followed the entire way there. I know that because the street that my apartment was on was really quiet. The next few...
That's, man, yeah, I almost definitely ain't answer no wrong phone numbers. I don't know none of that. They got your address somehow. Do that phone number. That's wild. That's the only explanation for it. Like, how else? Feel me?
Streets that I would drive on were also usually quiet. So I noticed a car driving behind me, although I couldn't tell who was driving the car. When I got to the highway, I sort of forgot about it and figured that it wasn't going to follow me anymore. The highway had a lot more vehicles on it. I thought maybe it was a coincidence to that point. But when I took my exit for work, I noticed the car taking the exit behind me. I drove down a couple more streets, and the car did the same. This had never happened before, and I had a really strong feeling that they were following me intentionally.
Yeah, go with your gut feeling. You ain't tripping. It's the reason why you feeling like that. You got that gut feeling like.
Now I was getting worried. But literally right before my turn for work, the car went in another direction. I really didn't know what to think about it. After work that night, I drove back home and wasn't followed. That night, I didn't get any phone calls. But the very next night after that, I did. This time, I remember that it was probably about 11 o'clock. The phone rang, and I walked over and picked it up. After answering, I heard a man's voice. He told me that he was my neighbor down the hallway, and asked if I could come over real quick. He said he needed some help. Something about it just seemed fishy.
Bro, what? Oh, okay. Now that I think about it, he said this like back in the day, like smartphones wasn't. Wait, was that the first one? Nah, that was the first story, wasn't it? Yeah. So this one, you can't. Could you see the number that's calling you, or is it one of those? You talk about you my neighbor. Like, bro, I don't know you. Who? You probably don't even know who you talking about. I would have instantly put 3 and 3 together, 2 and 2 together. Like, number keep calling me. Next thing you know, I'm getting followed. Come on now.
I thought that I recognized the voice, but not as a neighbor. And also, I was pretty sure that whoever this was supposed to be did not have my telephone number. I went to the door and looked through my peephole out of curiosity. When I did, I saw a man standing right there on the other side. I was not sure who he was, but I did think he was probably the one behind the strange occurrences. Instead, I dialed 911 and told the police that there was a suspicious man at my apartment. I then got another call from the guy claiming to be my neighbor. I answered it, asking who this neighbor was. He made up some name like Steve or something, I remember. He just kept telling me to come out of my apartment and that it was urgent. I went back over to the door and looked out, and the guy was still there. I told him that I called the cops. When I said this, I watched him turn and then walk away. After that, he didn't come back. The police got there a little while later, and I told them everything that the man had done. Unfortunately, there was not a lot that they could do about it. I decided to change my phone number, though. After that, I didn't receive any more calls. I also wasn't followed, and nobody came to my apartment, although I only lived in that apartment for about another month.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you got to change phone numbers and houses. That's the only explanation. They got your address through the phone. He calling you, not saying nothing. Like,
I never found out who had done it or why. Every time the phone would ring late at night for months, I would worry that it was that man calling. I'm really glad that he didn't, though.
Story 3.
Here's one thing you need to do before buying anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this.
Something really bizarre happened to me a couple of years ago. I got a new cell phone, a new number. I had been needing a new phone for a while, and my previous service was not very good. But after switching over, I soon started to get strange phone calls and texts. The first was a phone call from a number that I didn't recognize. Obviously, I didn't really recognize any of the new numbers after getting the phone, but when I answered, a man spoke and asked me why I hadn't been returning his calls. I realized that he must have the wrong number, and I told him that. But when I did, for some strange reason, he didn't believe me.
Damn. That was probably a female phone. Dude, he one of them. He acting crazy. He probably about to, he think he, they probably done got into it. Cause I think that's how it worked, right? Like somebody get a number and they switch it. The next person who get their number go, like the people who got that number, or the person who switched. Now it's the new number. They can still call it. So it's like, I think that's how it worked. I
just hung up on him. But sometime later, I received a text message.
He got to switch that number ASAP. You done got the wrong number.
From a different number. This text said something like, "Hey, call me when you get the chance." Once more, I didn't know the number, and I replied asking who it was.
New phone.
They responded with a name I didn't know, and I told them that they had the wrong number. This person did not respond. Over the next week or so, I got at least 10 different text messages and probably 10 phone calls. Most of them were from different phone numbers, but some were the same. I responded to most of them saying wrong number. I realized that most likely the previous person to have my phone number must have not told their contacts that they changed numbers, and they must have had a lot of friends or something. I answered another one of the random calls out of curiosity. It was another man who I didn't know, and I told him that he had the wrong number and I had recently gotten a new one. The man on the other end was saying that he didn't understand. I started to explain to him that I got a new phone and new service, but he then hung up on me. I put up with random texts and sometimes calls for the next few days. Almost everything I just started ignoring. Some people
Like, you should have been doing that. Like, that's all I do, bro. That's what it gotta be. Be ignoring them calls.
I had already told them they had the wrong number continued to text me.
I ain't even gonna do
It was
that.
kind of annoying, and I even considered asking to change numbers. Then I got a text from someone who had already texted me multiple times. They said that I needed to cut the crap and nobody was buying my new number nonsense. Then they said something like, my life could be made miserable if I didn't start cooperating. I read that and I was thinking to myself, who on earth had this number before?
Word, like what?
I didn't respond and wasn't really sure what to do. But I received another text saying that they could
Hey, you should have switched that number ASAP. Like, you already see what's going. You getting all these messages and all that. Like, why you still keeping it? You could. I don't think they charge you. Well, nah. You probably, yeah. You would have had to pay again. But I'm saying though, you should be straight. You should be straight.
me and I couldn't hide forever.
You can talk about my life could be miserable if I could operate or something like that.
At this point, most of the threatening texts were coming from 2 or 3 different numbers. And after these sort of texts went on for a few days, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the police, and I also went to get a new phone number. I told the cops my whole situation, and they told me that I should get a new number and they would handle the investigation. So I did get a new number.
What you went to the cops for? You should have just got a new number.
And after that, I wasn't bothered again. I also never heard anything more about those people, though, who they were or anything. I still wonder why I was getting those texts.
Yeah, no reason to go to the cops. They probably really thought that the person who had it was lying. You never know. That's exactly. I bet you that's what happened. Like, they went to the cops for no reason.